So, paper pots. Newspaper that we normally throw away, and I'm going to show you the biggest one, okay, because this you're going to love. So what this is basically a mold, and everyone has probably wrapped a gift at some time, a birthday present. So what we want to do is have, this is the bottom, we're going to want the paper to be long enough to fully cover the bottom. And what we're going to do is we're just going to roll it. So we want the piece of newspaper to be long enough to roll and overlap a little bit. Some people tape it. You don't have to. You can if you want to. Now, where I fold it in is where the overlap is, and that one I fold in first. Okay, just like a gift. Okay, get it in nice square. Then I fold it again, and there, oops, it ripped on me because I used this paper a couple times to practice. And then I kind of get my finger in and I pull it off, and there's my pot. Okay, so then what I can do now is I can take my soil, I gotta hold it because it'll come unravel, and I'm gonna put soil in there, okay? You can fill it up. And it is a pot. Okay? Really cool. And like I said, you can make smaller ones. And with the smaller one, all you have to do is have the bottom folded so you can have a really nice, tall, narrow pot. So you can have a whole bunch of plants along your windowsill. There could be lots of soil, okay? And you can make as many as you need. So there's no limit. And you can basically, as long as you can find soil, newspaper for free. Now, the next thing sometimes we don't have are trays, okay? So here is a poor man's way of making a tray. We all can get these type of cardboard boxes now in our grocery stores. Very, very common, okay? So, but in our house, it would, if we water that, it's going to leak, okay? So what we can do is we can take a plastic garbage bag and we can make it, just think like a little mini water bed. There's a lining here, this is the lining, okay? And then we would take our paper pots and we would put them in there, okay? And we could fit probably 3. So this one little box might be able to have 12 or more pots, paper pots, and you might put your pumpkins. You could put seeds in this, okay? You could put a transplant, or you could also start seeds in these. And then you can move this tray around. Now the next thing, because it's still too cold outside to put any of these types of plants outside, so but you might need to have your tray, and you might need to move it to the sun. So maybe in your house, in the morning, the window in the kitchen has sun, and you might move your tray there, and then later in the end of the day, it might be in the late afternoon in your living room. So you want to be able to move your trays to get maximum sun. Once it's really warm during the day and you have a deck, seedling care, you can take your tray, make sure everything's nicely watered, and put it out in the sun for just a few hours, not the whole day, not necessary. And that's going to start, what happens when you start putting them outside like that, that's called hardening off, okay? And so that's like sending your kids to kindergarten. You know, we used to only send them for half a day to get them climatized to going to school. It's very similar to plants. Just think that they're like little kids and they got to get used to going outside, okay? So now I want to show you another thing for seedling care that we're doing inside this big greenhouse. Now we do not have a furnace at this time producing any heat. So all the heat in here is from the sun. So at night it gets very cool. In fact, I'm just going to look at the temperature. So last night it was maybe -1 in here. So now if you look here, Kim's going to show you really closely. We seeded a few days ago. You can see these little plants are growing, okay? Now these are a type of oriental radish, okay? And then we have more radishes over here. I want to walk down here. So now, say you had a small greenhouse. You could do this in there. Now you see this fabric here, okay? This is a special cloth that is like a blanket. You could use an old bed sheet. And we've put these little, these are the handles from buckets. So when we want to put the cloth on at night, it'll just slightly keep it up. Now what this does is in the evening we put it on, and we also have these jugs here. These are old oil jugs from restaurants, and we just put water in, just water. And we put it along the bed. So what happens at night, during the day, the water warms up, okay? The water warms up, and then we put it by the bed, and we put the cloth over, and underneath here, it's going to be really hard to freeze. It will keep it at 0. And so we're only planting things that actually can even live through light frosts. Not all plants are killed by frost, like radishes and onions and lettuce, and they are killed by a light frost, but there's no wind. And then during the day, when it's sunny, you just pull it back so your plants get the light. And so it's a very simple, low-tech way of creating a microclimate, okay, for your plants. So the other thing I want to show you is these particular seeds that you could start very soon if you wanted. And so it's squash seeds. I don't know if you've ever seen pumpkin seeds. Let's take a look in here how they are. Okay, and so these are quite large seeds, okay? And so normally what you want to do is you want to have the seed can be fully immersed, okay, plus the depth of itself. So this seed could be that deep in the ground, okay? And it will push up. I wouldn't want to put this seed that deep in the ground, okay? And so if I was to plant in here, I'd put more soil, and I might put 2, 1 in each corner, because maybe one seed won't grow, okay? And then definitely in your house, and they will germinate within a few days. You'll know if they're, so water, warmth, and then light. And then these, you would wait if you don't have a greenhouse, cucumbers, zucchini, and pumpkin. I would wait to put outside in your garden until after June 11th, okay? But everything else, any questions? Is there any questions? I'm trying to think of seedling care.
So if people started seeds in those small trays with holes in them, when do they have to transplant them into a bigger pot?
Yeah,
like that.
This.
Mm-hmm,
okay,
yeah.
So basically, the best way to know when it's time to transplant something is when you look at your baby plants and the leaves are starting to overlap each other. So one plant is shading another plant. So it doesn't matter what plant it is. If the leaves of the plants are competing for the light, you want to put them in larger pots and even space them out so each plant gets all the sun that's shining on it.
Okay.
Okay, that is probably the number one thing. And the other thing that's important for seedling care, okay, is...
Do you have some seedlings to show?
I have something to show you.
Okay.
Well, I just have these. But I want to show an example. I'm going to use some weeds. Come on this side. Now, this right here is chickweed. Okay, so that's technically a weed. However, let's pretend it's something we planted. If we come with a big hose with a strong sprayer and blast this hard, and we have little tiny baby seeds coming up, it will break them off. So when your seeds are tiny and they're germinating, you want to be gentle with the water. And if you're in the house and you have a watering can, you don't want to dump it, because like it'll push your soil and it'll push your seeds. So you want to sort of trickle it at the beginning. So that's another little tip that's kind of important, especially if you're starting flower seeds. Lots of flower seeds are quite tiny and delicate, and once they're growing and they're a little bigger, then you can put the water on a little quicker and faster without doing damage.
Okay.
And, yep.
So water gently.
Yes,
So we have a question here from Rihanna. Hi, Rihanna.
Hi.
When can you put cucumbers and tomatoes in a greenhouse that's unheated? And what do the overnight temperatures need to be?
Yeah, good question. So I would wait definitely until June, because the greenhouses warm up during the day but get practically as cold at night. If you have a little greenhouse, collect plastic milk jugs and fill them with water, and you can even put food dye in, like blue dye, because the darkness of the water will absorb more heat. And these are actually called heat batteries. Okay, and that could save your greenhouse. But I would probably not put them in there until in June. Unless you have let's show.
So what temperatures does it need to be?
Most of the time, cucumbers and that, I have this. I do believe I have it. Let me look quickly here for preferred temperatures on my chart. So cucumbers, ideal temperature that they love to grow, let's go really close, is 15 above, okay? So it takes a long time, and that's at night, okay? So what happens if the temperature goes lower than 15 above? They don't die, but they physically don't grow. So if your greenhouse goes down to, say, only +5 at night, the cucumbers go into sort of like, they slow right down, they don't grow, and then when it warms up 15 above or higher, they grow. And talking about a greenhouse, you don't want it ever hotter than +40, ever. +40 Celsius is the maximum, and after that, the plants, the flowers don't pollinate. So you want the greenhouse between freezing, +30, +35 is optimal.
Okay. We have another good question from Jenny. Hi, Jenny. My broccoli are leggy, even though I have a grow light hung low above them. Is there any way to save them?
Yes. Okay, so they maybe start trying to actually bring them out into the sunlight. The sunlight today. It's sunny. Bring them outside. Slow down how much water you give. Let the soil get a little bit dry. If they wilt, then you definitely held back the water. You don't want to make them wilt, because the water is like pushing them to grow faster than what the amount of light is. And the legginess also can be caused because the temperature of the room is nice and warm. Warmth makes them grow, water makes them grow, and sun. So what happens if we don't have enough light? Okay, so we can make it cooler at night. Literally turn the temperature down so your house is cooler at night. That will help.
Or would you turn the light off?
No, it's not. No, I wouldn't shut the light off if they're leggy. Yeah, I don't. Okay. You can shut the light off. Some people that's an excellent question. Some people believe in shutting the light off at night and giving the plants a complete sleep at night, which you can. And but I would just try putting them in to the real sun outside, even for 1 hour, and they'll firm right up. And it also depends on how close they are. Maybe they need a bigger pot, but they can be pretty leggy and stretched out and still firm right up and get strong.
You can also put a fan on them, right?
Yeah. Which is like wind.
Yeah.
So what Kim is saying is, because it's like exercise. If you put a fan, it's like they're going to the gym, and it's moving them, which actually stimulates hormonal response to create more firmness in their branches and in their stem. So yeah, I wouldn't give up on them.
Okay, so another one. Steph asks, how can we compost at home? So I'll answer that question later.
Okay, we're going to do that.
The next one is, hi Cindy, my seedling were planted in new potting soil. After the first set of true leaves, they're turning yellow. What should I do?
Yeah, now that could be from sometimes a little bit too much watering. If your soil, like you're going to look, is it sitting in water? Because yellow leaves sometimes is a sign that there's not quite enough air, and the nitrogen, okay, is the plants can't take it up if it's in too wet of an environment. My guess is it might be that. So just let your plants dry out a little bit. You have to be very careful about ever fertilizing baby plants. They are literally like babies, and like an actual infant, we only give them milk because babies cannot digest real food yet. Baby seedlings are like that, and you can kill them if you use a strong fertilizer, but you could sprinkle coffee grounds on the surface, just like a light dusting, like after you make coffee, and you dry them, because it's a very, very gentle, slow release fertilizer that does have nitrogen in it. Or if you had worm compost, but you might not have worm compost, but that's what I would suggest. Watch your water. You might be giving a little bit too much, and give it lots of sun and a little bit of coffee sprinkled.
Okay, Stephanie asks, what can happen after it gets too hot?
You mean in the greenhouse? Yeah, so if it gets, any plants don't like to live in plus 40, and neither do human beings, okay? So if you go into your greenhouse and it is so hot you can't stand it in there, your plants aren't happy either. So when it gets too hot, that's why you need to have vents. It's very important. And if you have to be careful, like that sheet of fabric, if that was a sheet of clear plastic, it could cook and go to plus 50 under it and bake everything. What happens after plus 40 is the plants and the flowers, they literally close, and you will not get pollination. Tomato flowers don't pollinate, pepper plants don't pollinate above 40. In fact, this affects food security around the world, where they're already growing, like even rice. Lots of plants the pollen will not set if it's above 40. That's one of the number one things, other than actually being cooked, if you get too much hotter than that.
Okay, one more question. I have from Rhiannon. Hi, I have small lettuce seedlings. How best to transfer them to the greenhouse now, and how do I best acclimate them?
Yeah, so I would first just start moving that tray outside into the sun for, like today, for a couple hours. Bring them in, and maybe again, and then you could do on tomorrow, Sunday, and then maybe Monday, you could start transplanting some of them, and maybe don't transplant them all. Just do half, okay? And then see how they do. Don't be discouraged. A lot of times when you carefully transplant a little lettuce, some of the leaves will die. And you think, oh, my plant has died. But it's kind of like a snake. You know when the snake sheds its skin? A lot of times those first leaves that were used while they were living inside your house aren't adequate for living in your greenhouse. And they dry up more quickly, but you got to look at the heart. And if you can see the little heart, and you'll probably see a nice, healthy green leaf coming, and all of a sudden, boom, you'll get this big lettuce leaf comes out, and those original little leaves dried up and fell off because they weren't needed anymore. Okay, and so then you might want to use a type of cloth, and you might have, like maybe you have buckets, like I don't know how you're growing, but say you had garden pots, okay, and say you had your buckets like that. Well, you could have a milk jug, and then a bucket and a milk jug, and then put a little cloth over top at night. And that heat from the water would prevent those little plants from freezing. But also in your bed, you could put milk jugs right right on it if you want it, or along the edge, and cover it with a cloth. And that would easily protect probably, gosh, it might go to -10 outside, and your plants wouldn't be destroyed.
Your lettuce plants.
Yeah, lettuce, I'm saying. But
the hardy
lettuce,
ones.
if it was outside a greenhouse, and it went to -10, and you had put lettuce inside your greenhouse, put some water jugs and a cloth, they wouldn't die. Okay, so yeah. I hope that helps.
Okay. All right. Someone asked about the water battery to just film it better. So I'll show you what Jackie means by a water battery. We also call them like a heat sink.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is literally just a jug that we've recycled. So it's actually from a restaurant, the fry oil, they used fry oil, and we emptied the oil and then we just filled it with pond water.
Yeah.
So it's dark because there's a bit of mud in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what it does is during the day it absorbs all the sunlight and they heat right up, so they're nice and warm. And then when you put them beside the soil, and during the nighttime when it gets cool, the heat will release from the water buckets, and it'll keep your greenhouse warm.
Yes, yes. And there's what's called phase change, and it takes a lot. The water has to release a lot of heat to freeze. And so because it's low at the ground, and this heat and the cloth allows the heat to be stored, because the soil itself is absorbing heat. So when you put the cloth on, the heat that absorbed during the day is saved. It's just like us when we put our coat on to go outside. It's exactly the same. And so it's a heat battery, heat battery. This is the exact same material as what's the plastic milk jugs.
Okay.
Exact same material.
One more question from Cindy is, what temperature do carrots need to grow?
Oh, to carrots, I'll show you.
Let's look,
Yeah. Carrots, you could do carrots very early. Where did I put a book? Oh, here. Carrots do good in cool climate. And so carrots, here. You need to go quite close. So carrots only need the soil to be +4 to begin to germinate. That's the minimum, okay? The seeds can germinate. They'll germinate quicker. Carrots can take 1 week. The most important thing is to make sure you water them every day until they germinate. That is probably the #1 barrier to successful carrots, okay? And then if we look on this chart here, I'm looking upside down, carrots. So carrots, even if it's only +7 outside, your carrots will physically divide cells and grow compared to these other ones that are +10 and +15. So carrots are an excellent plant for the cool areas.
Okay, so that's probably good for now, and then we'll be back soon with more. So think of more questions. And we'll try and work on our sound. So that's what I'm gonna do. Thanks, everybody.
Take care. Bye.